I'm Sarah Lebner from Cooee Architecture. I specialise in regional, energy efficient, low carbon homes that are an absolute joy to live in, and this channel is about sharing some of that knowledge with you. This series is all about my own farmhouse build, the Cooee House.
I know the main thing everyone who's here is wondering is, what does your house design look like, Sarah? What does an architect design for themselves? And well, I hope it's not disappointing because it's really very, very simple. It is correct for our context, but our whole ethos at Cooee and my practice in architecture is to distill things so they're sort of done beautifully and simply and optimized well. Glenn Murcutt has this saying, he says all the time, to be simple is not to be simplistic, meaning that it's actually really challenging to do a simple thing in a very distilled, beautiful, effective way. So that's somewhat what we took on. There have been many variations of what this house might have looked like over the years. I think there have been probably 4 really significant variations. The very first one I drew up as a graduate, I remember, had sort of 2 different wings and a cross point, and then I learned about not only the thermal efficiency but cost effectiveness of not having lots of external wall. And then there was another version that was 2 stories, and we sort of had a second story within the roof space, like as a sort of attic loft space. You can see that model on our Hackett house with Cooee. We sort of experimented more with that. It made more sense in that setting. We ended up coming back in our rural setting to a pretty simple single level, partly again due to construction costs. And look, we didn't have those constraints where bringing the second level up made sense for our footprint or anything, because there was no limits on that. So shall we just jump in and I'll start talking you through our design.
So here we are. This is our site context. So in the previous view, I was sort of standing up around here talking to you. We've got north is almost directly up the page, and we've got those views out to the Snowy Mountains down here, views to the river down this way, and then our valley sort of essentially runs north-south. We come up that driveway here. So the house is oriented to maximize that northern exposure so that we can capture all that free winter heating from direct sunlight in winter. And then the windows and rooms are then planned to make the most of that connection to the big view down the valley and the Snowy Mountains. Very challenging aspect actually to have your main view south-southeast. The only one that's slightly harder is south-southwest. And a lot of the homes around here are sort of just default plonked facing that main view. And I can guarantee that they get absolutely smashed by summer morning sun and then afternoon sun on the other side of them. So I'm excited to show you how that works. But then we do have this very large farm shed. Our farm's in need of a new machinery shed and whatnot, and it's also a workshop for my husband, so you can see that it sort of dwarfs the house by comparison, just purely because if its size, it's then turned to match the fall of the site, so it's not a massive cut in, which again works really well for sort of protecting it, and it's just got that eastern opening. The site falls down this way. So while we come in on level at the carport, and then there's a flat area to the north of the house, the site then does drop away, and there's some interesting things happening with how we're going to do the garden around there. Let's jump into the floor plan. So, well, first of all, let me just run through the size of this house. So we are 176 meters squared. Now, I wouldn't say that is a small house. That's a pretty typical family size house for what we do. Your average new Australian home is a bit bigger than that, more like 200 plus a 40 square meter garage. But for what we fit in this house, it is very space efficient. So considering that it's essentially hitting, it can function as a 4-bedroom, 2 living, 2-bathroom home. That would normally be an almost 300 square meter house, I reckon, if you look at some project homes, whereas we're doing it in that 170 something. So let me walk you through. So remembering our north is up to the front here. So how do you optimize having good living area and windows on the north to capture all that winter heat, but then also enjoy those views that are down around the south and sweeping around the southeast? So we come into our carport here. It's an open carport. I'm a massive fan of open carports. Not only are they cheaper to construct, but you keep them clean. As soon as you put a garage on a carport, people just fill it with stuff and then they park outside. When we've visited clients in the past that have an open carport, the carport stays tidy. And then we put this storage area behind. Obviously, we're going to have farm storage up at the shed, but this is more for camping gear, all the things in storage boxes. We do have the 2 vehicles and then a 4-wheeler because we're in a rural context. All our services neatly tucked in a nook here, split system and heat pump hot water system. And then coming into the entry, very hard working entry. We've got outside, this will be behind a cupboard. This is the sort of farm laundry. Anyone who's lived in a farmhouse can relate to the laundry being taken over with animal welfare things like bottles to feed baby lambs and things. So we've got that outside. Also means any of that really dirty stuff can stay outside. Then we come in. So we don't have a formal entry and a separate mudroom and then a separate laundry. It's all together working here. So this will be some nicer joinery with a bench seat and a sort of nook under for each family member's shoes and a nook over for bags and things, a little bit of coat hanging. And then this quite deep, long space for what we would normally call a European laundry, but it's a European farmhouse laundry. So it has the chest freezer, a long bench with washing machine and dryer under, shelves over. We'll have some of the pull-out clotheslines so that if we are drying inside for a little bit, that will happen there. And then a curtain in front. I'm a really big fan of the cost effectiveness of curtains. Now, we often do fold away and sliding systems for clients, but they're expensive and I can't wait to test out this curtain and show you what it looks like. This is a glass window door. And then this space at the back it's really a room of requirement. So to start with, it's intended as my office and workplace and also my husband's office for the farm desk, both being self-employed. But it is sized to have the sofa bed in it as well. So if guests come, it will be the spare guest room. This starts off as a window, but it can be sort of put a new door handle on it, and it can be a door so that you could even potentially have someone else staying there as a bed sit. So say a teenager ends up living at home and they want their own sort of different space again. You could use that for that. No built-in joinery in here yet, because that's another budget saving again. But you can see that door's spaced over for sort of an area here and an area here and then a sitting area here. We then have the 3 dedicated bedrooms. So the 2 kids get the nice northern bedrooms. Kids tend to spend a bit more time in their bedrooms, and it's set up here with a desk space right next to the window, so that is a nice space for them to be in. They'll be getting that warm winter northern sunlight. And this is sort of a classic farmhouse thing. They've got their door straight outside their built-in storage along there. Whereas our bedroom is down here. Some people really like a eastern bedroom where the sun's going to wake them up or things like that. That's not something we particularly like. For me, it was the view. So that bedroom will be on the southern cool side, but we'll have that view down the valley and to the snowy mountains. Now, this bathroom's quite a small setup by new home standards, but like all things, far more effective and spacious than a lot of the homes we rent in over our lifetime. So we do have the separate toilet, and then this bathroom is a pretty generous vanity, so room for everyone, and then a big built-in mirror cabinet. So that'll be sort of the family health hub. And then it does have a shower over bath. We'll be using a specific bath that's designed for that so that it's not a nightmare. Because then we have this, we call it the off-suite setup. We very rarely do en-suites these days that are true en-suites that are accessed from inside a bedroom. We tend to do more off-suites because you can close this door and it will work just like a traditional en-suite. But if you've got heaps of families staying over or, someone's in here, you can also close this door and it'll be used as a secondary bathroom, which is just makes your home so much more agile. And I'm really looking forward to this. So we probably won't really refer to it that much as bathroom and ensuite. And, when guests come, you show them where this is so they know they can use either bathroom. This is also the one that's designed with the light touch accessibility. So not fully wheelchair accessible, but it is designed to the livable housing standards, with the space in front of the toilet, and the railing can go either side of the toilet. Same at the shower. We can put railing all around and you've got that completely flush entry into the shower. So we don't mind having the shower over the bath in here because we do have a completely safe walk-in shower here. If an elderly relative comes to stay, for example, we would get them to use this bathroom. Lots of storage all the way down the hallway. So our bedroom, for example, the plan is that this double door cupboard is mine. Some people might say that's not enough storage. I have two theories. One, you will fill whatever space you have. So if you don't want to be overwhelmed by a lot of stuff, don't make massive wardrobes for it. But secondly, a well-designed wardrobe is so much more effective than sort of the really cheap default ones that you get. So this will have drawers lower and then upper hanging. My partner has this same setup here, and then there's some hanging here, but then this is also designed as wardrobe hanging. That's how we've lived in every other house that we've had because we've never had much bedroom storage. And this is where suits, dresses, coats, things that don't get used that much go. This shallower cupboard for, games, things like that. And then along here, we've got plenty of room for linen, sports gear, things like that. Then we come around to our living space. So the living space was always the thing I struggled with the most because how do you get the most out of that northern sunlight coming in when the best view is south? So this is our open plan layout. You've got the sink facing north and a somewhat typical L-shaped kitchen with a long island, and then our dining space on the northeast there, which will connect both this way and this way. So when our guests come to visit, they can either come through the door here or they can just walk right along and come in this door here. You can get a swing glass door like this because I've lived in a lot of houses with sliding front doors and they're just a nightmare. And then we've got our big lift and slide slider over here. So this will open right up out to deck area here, and then you step down to a fire pit area down here. This is our fireplace here. And then this is the screenless sitting area. So it's got like the piano and bookshelves and things. And even though our view is sort of out to the corner here, that's sort of captured with this corner window. I can't wait to show you this because a lot of clients will immediately think to enjoy a corner view, you have to have a sort of very fancy corner window where the glass matches. But it is a lot cheaper if you've got at least a column in the corner, so you don't need that structural cantilever of roof over. And then I've even got ours pushed out a little bit because I know that the sense of the corner expanse is more important than having that necessarily connect. And then this is our sort of true lounge with the television in it, with its southern view. Again, it's able to be closed off so that it can be a guest space. I imagine if we have a lot of family over that, kids might sleep in here or something, or you can close it off while the kids are watching a movie and adults are hanging out here. We've got enough set up so that you can push the sitting area caps the other way and set up a really long table for a big Christmas event, things like that. It's all standard flat ceiling through the back here. Again, another thing I can't wait to show. A lot of people fight on this. Barely anyone does a standard 2.4 ceiling anymore, but the trick is to use the full height doors and windows and have the square set cornerless ceiling, and then your sense of that space lifts dramatically. Whenever we take clients to past projects, they're often in these back space, secondary spaces that have the standard ceiling height and can't believe that it is the standard ceiling height. But when we come through into here, it will rake and be a gable. I'll show you the shape of the house soon. So that's where you sort of invest your extra money in just a few special spaces rather than default to it being high the whole way through. What else? Again, we're going curtains mostly all the way through. So there's actually a built-in pelmet that runs around this raked space to hold the curtains. Curtains are great thermally. I think they bring a softness. We're moving away a little bit from the up-down blinds on the tilt and turn windows, which are also thermally efficient. But I like the softness of the curtains. And then the curtains in these other spaces will just have the simple ceiling mount tracks. So they're floor to ceiling fabric, which looks really nice and is quite affordable, and you can install it yourself. We have an eave all the way around, so I'll show you that shortly. So the home is automatically shaded in summer, whereas the sun comes in winter. But then we extend that effect by having this frame around for the pergola. To the east and to the north, there will be a wisteria along here. I know a lot of people say, don't do a wisteria, but this is a steel structure designed to withhold the fury of a wisteria and set off the eave of the roof so that we can just zoom along with a little electric colour and keep that wisteria at bay. But that will have a beautiful effect of extending that northern eave and creating more shade along there in summer, giving that transpirational cooling and a nice greenery along the front of the house. There's so many project home plans that get the design right in that the living area faces north, but then they put an alfresco outside and it just kills how it's all working. You're then instantly blocking all of that winter sun coming in and that free heating during winter. Not to mention just light. It makes it very dark in winter if you do that. So when we've got homes with east or west views, we generally stack the living areas on the north of the side of that view and then extend this area out, and this portion will have a roofed cover over it, which does give you that roofed outdoor area if you need it, connecting directly to there. Let me show you what happens in 3D. Maybe I'll show you solar studies first. So this shows the effect of that summer and winter solstice. So this is in the middle of winter in midday. You can see that the sun is hitting all of these windows and flooding in. Whereas in summer, you've got that eave working for you and there's not sun hitting any windows. The sun will hit this window, which we will have an external shade cover over, and there are no western windows. So that gives you an idea then there as well of the form. So it's a very simple gable. We did originally have a expressed fireplace on the edge here, which looked great, but it was only really aesthetic. It's not needed these days with the flu. So that did come off when we were hitting a little bit over budget. This is that pergola that you can see running right along there, where the wisteria will grow along there. So you can imagine beautiful vines all along there, changing with the seasons. And then that integrates into some structure that's needed for the carport there. What materials are we using is usually the next question. Look, there is no perfect material. Any material you'll throw at me, I could make an argument for why it was sustainable. And likewise, any material you can make an argument for why it is not sustainable. I want to do a whole other video about that sometime. But I guess for us, we want this home to be very robust and last many generations, being on a farm. So we have gone with a masonry finish so that we don't have any need to repaint or redoing flashings and things over time. And that's not what we do on all of our projects, I have to say. We do a lot of lightweight clad homes. But we did end up going with brick. The problem with traditional brick is it's fairly carbon intensive. So we're getting a recycled brick mix from a supplier in Sydney. And they sort their bricks really well. So you can pick a mix that you like. So ours is a bit more softer and varied than, say, you see a lot of Canberra red brick, which is a really rich red brick. So it's going to be softer. Then we've got black detailing. So that's partly driven by a look that sort of my husband likes. So the windows and the framing and the gutter and fascia are all black for that detailing. It's almost like the seams on your coat. And then the roof, pardon me, is a more subdued woodland grey. So it fits really well in urban context because it has a sort of greeny browny undertone to it. It's not as harsh as those black roofs. If you're thinking you're doing an energy efficient house with a black roof, Sarah, so if you look at the energy efficiency modelling, because we use so much more energy in winter, having a dark roof actually has a marginal positive effect. But if you've watched the other video on our channel about optimizing a home, when we model the different colours, the way we build houses, and when a house is well built and well detailed, well insulated, the colour of the roof might make maximum 0.1 star of a difference in the rating, and actually it's usually skewed towards winter. Now, different story in the suburbs. Black roofs do contribute massively to urban heat island effect, and I am more passionate about dealing with that. And then around the back, so you can see we've got that slight drop off. Now, I'm not sure whether we'll really achieve this. You have to be flexible as your project goes along. The dream is sort of to have the paddock come right up to the end of the house, so that if you're standing up here in the lounge room, you look out and you don't really see sort of garden and fence. You just see paddock with horses and cattle and trees and the snowy mountains in the background. So we might do that with a false fence or sort of a ha-ha wall, if you've heard of them, where you dig it a bit lower so the fence is high enough for the animals on one side, but then it doesn't feel as high for you on the other side. We'll see whether we can achieve that or not. And then this is a outdoor bath. I forgot to point that out in the plan. So there's a door in our shower here that comes straight out to an outdoor wood fire heated bath that will go out here and look out to that view. That's a big dream of mine. What else do you need to know? We'll just run through those elevations so you can see here that's our recycled brick sort of palette with the darker colours. We've got the grade off timber decking, ironbark, which stays, it's hard to install, but it's a very hard, solid, stable timber. So you just let it grey off. You don't have to maintain it and it doesn't splinter. It's also accepted in BAL 29 because it is such a dense timber. We will enclose all the subfloor, and then actually it's the only part of the house where you do leave a little gap. You don't ember-proof the gap. The bare theory is that if an ember lands, it would actually fall through, because you do need a gap for decks to expand and contract. So how do you ember-proof it tightly? You can't do that. So then leave a bit more of a gap so it goes through. Supposedly, we will be putting gravel underneath the deck so that if that were ever to occur, the ember wouldn't fall through into something underneath. Now, vines, you're not really meant to have them in bushfire areas, and depending on your jurisdiction, you may sort of have conditions that stipulate that you won't do a vine. However, my own research on this seems to have come to the conclusion that they've made those rules around spaced out greenery and vines because they have to assume the worst case scenario. The bushfire is happening on a drought year. People haven't maintained or watered their plants, so they become a hazard. Whereas well-watered plants and particular plants, plants that aren't oily, don't have volatile oils, don't have shredding bark, have nice big waxy leaves, can actually be defensive in a bushfire scenario. So wisteria is one of those plants. And here's that section where we go through. So this is talking more about the structure of how everything's built, which is you'll see that as we start building. I'll talk more about that. Here's that gentle raked ceiling in there. This explains that covered area on the pergola, and this will be shaded more by greenery. And that rounds out what the house design is. Please let me know your questions. I'll answer them in a future video.